Today, we're going to talk about how to sell hospital indemnity and cancer plans when you're working with somebody that has a Medicare Advantage plan. One of the things that I hear all the time is people go in and say, well, they're on XYZ Medicare Advantage plan. It's what's best for them. They burn the lead and move on. And I think that's a big mistake because I believe that 4 out of 4 still need more. And back when I was out actively selling as a producer in the field, is I would cross sell. And it's crucial. And a couple of things that I've learned and perfected over the years, it's the words you use. So if I'm sitting down with a member and I have the benefits at a glance, and one of the first things that pops up is say, hey, so your monthly premium is $0 or $33 or $96. Then you go to the next line item and usually you'll say, hey, there is no deductible for this insurance. You have day one dollar coverage, but you do have a max out of pocket. And the max out of pocket could be $4,500 or $5,000. But I don't want you to worry about that max out of pocket because I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about some policies that will fill that gap. See, I'm setting it up as I'm going through the presentation and I'm going to move on. I'm going to continue to go on. And oftentimes you're comparing two plans side by side. Maybe they're on XYZ carrier and you want to move them to Swamp Life of Georgia and you're comparing them side by side so they can make an educated decision at the kitchen table, or maybe you're doing it online via Zoom or however you do your business. And then you continue down and you're like, okay, well, the next thing is your primary care doctor is $0 or $10 or $30. Your specialist is going to be $30 or $40. And there's no referral required, or there may be a referral required. Your virtual visits to the doctor are going to be a $0 copay. These are all things I'm going through because you have to go through the booklet anyway when you're enrolling a member to make sure they understand the benefits. Then as you continue down, this is where it says hospital inpatient. And listen to the words that I use. You're on the hook for $345 a day, days 1 through 5. Well, what do you mean I'm on the hook? Well, you're on the hook if you get admitted to the hospital, and that's where you're going that max out of pocket. That copay is going to apply to that max out of pocket. But I don't want you to worry about that. Now, I have a lot of different hospital indemnity programs is where I'm keying that up for, and it could be with a bunch of different carriers. But I know that with most carriers, unless they're really, really sick, I can get them on a hospital indemnity plan to cover that copay because that is one of their biggest risks. You figure if it's $300 a day for 5 days, that's $1,500 the day they're in the hospital for 5 days. So I don't want them to worry about that. And then I also say something like this. Those policies range from $40 to $80 a month. Now I'm going to get to the very end on the close and how I bring this all together and get it closed. The next thing I point out is you have a skilled nursing benefit because there's also skilled nursing riders in a lot of these hospital indemnity plans. And I say, well, your copay for skilled nursing days 1 through 20 is $0, but after 21 days, there's a copay. So I don't want you to worry about that. This is going to come into play if you had a hip surgery or a stroke, or you had to go from the hospital to a care facility to get you better, to get you home. But again, I don't want you to worry about that because there's programs that will help fill that gap. As I continue on down, I'm going to continue to go through all of the copays that are on that benefits at a glance, or the highlights, or if I'm comparing them side by side. And then I usually get to the part where it talks about cancer, diagnostic cancer procedures. Most plans have a 20% coinsurance if they get diagnosed with cancer. That's going to be your radiology treatment, your chemo treatment, all of those things. And again, I'm going to say you're at risk or on the hook of 20% coinsurance. But again, I don't want you to worry about that. So as I get all the way to the end, I get all the way to the end, I go through all the benefits, I hit the hot points in that benefits at a glance, because the idea is I'm teeing it up for a hospital indemnity plan, a cancer plan, and a skilled nursing plan or a short-term care plan. And as I go through that, they're listening and they're talking and there's some interaction, what about this, what about that? So I get to the end and I said, okay, so if I put you on this program right here, and I can put you on a hospital indemnity plan and a cancer plan, it'll run you anywhere from $40 to $80 a month. How does that sound to you? Now, I committed them to a range of dollars because I don't like to sit down personally and run a benefit and be like, hey, it's going to cost you this. If I know I haven't committed for $80, then I'm going to go run a quote. And oftentimes what I'll do is I'll open up the guidebook or the questions and say, start asking the health questions. So I want to know if they even qualify. And sometimes I'll do the takeaway saying, I don't even know if you're going to even qualify for this program. I may get into the health questions and I didn't ask on the front end, they've had cancer in the last 5 years or 10 years, whatever the policy is, and then I can't write the cancer plan. But the idea is, it's the words you use. Insurance is about offsetting risk. You're on the hook. you're at risk for these dollars. And you can help offset that risk for $40 to $80 a month. And usually by that, they're like, oh yeah, I get that. And then people are like, well, what policy do I choose? Most of the plans that you're selling that are ancillary products, it's a bucket of money. It's that simple. It's okay, if you're diagnosed with cancer, you're going to get $5,000 check. Okay, I get asked, well, what happens if I get cancer again? Well, a lot of the programs that we have, they're reoccurring. So meaning after 5 years, it resets to the $5,000 again, because we know that they're 80% more likely to diagnose with another form of cancer if they've been diagnosed with cancer before. A phenomenal statistic, right? 83%. The other one is we know that 1 out of every 2 men and 1 out of every 3 women. So as I'm selling and I ask them, hey, has anyone in your family had cancer? Well, yeah. Has anyone ever been admitted to the hospital? Well, yeah. They had a stroke. You know, how did they pay for that copay or whatever? So I'm setting up the need and teeing it up so that when I get down to say, I need your banking information, I've asked the health questions, I'm writing the policy and saying, at the end, it's going to cost you $63.50 to give you a $5,000 cancer benefit. It's going to give you 120 days in a skilled nursing facility. It's going to give you 10 days in the hospital at $300 a day. And then I've given the benefits. I have them sign and I'm done. I have done this over and over and over and over again. And it's about the stories you tell and it's about how you set it up. So I don't want to hear somebody go in there and say, well, they're on the right Medicare Advantage plan, I couldn't help them. I'm like, are you kidding me? You didn't help them as an agent. You did not fill all of their gaps. You need to talk to them about cancer, heart attack, stroke. You need to talk to them about hospital indemnity. These are all gaps that you can fill and better cover them. You know, as an insurance agent, the more policies you get in the house, the longer that policy holder stays on the books. But guess what? Not only that, you make more money. It's not about money, but you make more money. That's the reality. But at the end of the day, you're helping them better. I would rather have a phone call where somebody calls me up and says, Ty, I just got admitted to the hospital. What do I need to do? Hey, don't worry about it. Let's get a claim form sit in. You're going to have a check coming. How many days were in the hospital? You know, you have a policy that's $300 a day. You were there for 5 days. You're going to have a check for $1,500 coming in the bank or coming to you and they're like, okay, great. Or would I rather have a phone call? Well, you know what? That sucks. You know, I'm sorry to hear that, but you're going to have to pay those copays because that's what we talked about on your plan. Which agent do you want to be? Do you want to be number 1 or do you want to be number 2? I'd rather be number 1 and not number 2 because, I mean, in the last little while, believe it or not, I've had people call me up and say, hey, Ty, can I get on that cancer plan you talked to me about 4 or 5 years ago? Because they didn't want to spend it. They didn't think they were going to have cancer. They didn't think they were going to get to the hospital. I'm like, well, it's too late. You have to have those policies in effect before you get diagnosed with cancer, not after. And they're like, oh, I figured as much. But I do not like having those conversations. I'd rather have the conversation of the first lady I ever sold a policy to. It was a $50,000 lump sum cancer. She made the payment in November. She was diagnosed with cancer in January. Luckily they caught it early. And the conversation I had with her is I said, do you have anybody in your family that's had cancer? And she's like, well, yeah, I had my cousin had, you know, this type of cancer, colon cancer. And my nephew had cancer in his eye. And my mom had breast cancer. And I said, is that a concern to you? And she's like, yes. I said, well, I can cover you for a $50,000 lump sum cancer policy for back in the day, it was probably $50 a month. She made 2 payments on that policy and they wrote her a check for 50 grand. It allowed her to go back to do an experimental surgery at the source of the cancer because she had breast cancer, and it cost her $28,000 cash because they didn't accept insurance and it was experimental. And then she was able to remodel her house with the rest of the money. That is power. And if you don't have stories of cancer plans or hospital indemnity plans, then use some or find people that do. I had another guy that he went in and did a knee surgery and he was home by himself. So he went into a skilled nursing facility because he had nobody that could help him or watch him. He spent 20 days in a skilled nursing facility. He's like, Ty, I got a check for $3,200. And he's like, that was great. And you know, it was a check to him. So the copay, even though the plan, the Advantage plan covered that copay, he was still able to have a check to him. And then the last thing, so you've got hospital indemnity, cancer, heart attack, stroke. They get diagnosed with a stroke or a heart attack, they're going to get a bucket of money. They're really easy policies to sell. What I would encourage you to do is make a commitment today to bring it up. And I will make you a promise that if you bring it up to the next 10 people you meet with at the kitchen table, or on the phone, 7 out of those 10 people will buy just by bringing it up. I promise you, it's that easy. You're going to help the consumer, you're going to help yourself, and you're not going to be telling yourself, there's nothing I could do to help them. You can help them. Make them a policyholder, cover them against the risks. We're insurance agents. Our job is to protect consumers against risk. That's the definition of insurance. And as I like to say, do your job, do your job. Just bring it up. It's not a hard conversation, but it's oftentimes when I ask agents if they bring it up, they're like, no, I'm going to go back. Are you kidding me? You're going to go back? You never do. The be back bus never goes back, right? Make the decision today to bring it up, to sell cancer, heart attack, stroke, hospital indemnity, all of those programs. You'll be a better agent. Your consumers will love you, and you'll have fun doing it. Thank you.